In the mid-1960s, the American automotive landscape was shifting from a focus on family comfort to a feverish obsession with raw, unadulterated speed. But while brands like Pontiac and Chevrolet were screaming for attention with loud stripes and rowdy personas, a different kind of monster was being bred in Lansing, Michigan. It was a car that didn't feel the need to shout to be heard, yet when it spoke, it carried the authority of a sledgehammer wrapped in a velvet glove. This was the Oldsmobile 442, a machine that proved you didn't have to sacrifice your dignity to dominate the drag strip. It was the gentleman's muscle car, a sophisticated bruiser that offered a level of refinement its rivals couldn't hope to match. But don't let the wood-grain dashboard fool you. Underneath that polished exterior lay one of the most formidable power plants of the golden era. This is the story of how Oldsmobile went from being your grandfather's favorite brand to the secret weapon of the horsepower wars. To understand where the 442 came from, we have to look at the internal civil war brewing within General Motors in 1964. At the time, GM had a strict policy. No mid-sized cars were allowed to have engines larger than 330 cubic inches. But John DeLorean and the team at Pontiac decided to play fast and loose with the rules, dropping a massive 389 into the Tempest and creating the GTO. It was an overnight sensation that sent shockwaves through the industry. Oldsmobile, often viewed as the conservative, engineering-heavy division of GM, found themselves caught off guard. They couldn't let Pontiac have all the glory. The response had to be quick, it had to be effective, and it had to be uniquely Oldsmobile. A small team of performance-minded engineers, led by the legendary John Betts and supported by Dale Smith and Bob Dorsheimer, went to work on the F85 and Cutlass platforms. They didn't just want to throw a big engine at the problem. They wanted a balanced performance package. This led to the birth of the 442 designation. Contrary to popular belief, the numbers didn't refer to the engine displacement. In its original 1964 iteration, 442 stood for a 4-barrel carburetor, a 4-speed manual transmission, and a dual exhaust system. It was a clear signal to enthusiasts that Oldsmobile was serious about performance. While these early models weren't the highest horsepower cars in the GM stable, they earned a reputation for superior handling and heavy-duty suspension components that allowed them to put their power down more effectively than the competition. By 1966, the secret was out, and Oldsmobile decided to turn up the heat. This was the year the world was introduced to the W30 engine package. Developed in near total secrecy starting in 1964, the W30 was designed to transform the 442 into a high-performance titan capable of taking down anything on the street. Only 50 of these specialized machines were released in that first year, making them instant legends among those in the know. The heart of the beast was a 400 cubic inch V8 pushing out a stout 350 horsepower. This was Oldsmobile's secret weapon, and it set the stage for the absolute peak of the muscle car era. The turning point for the 442 came in 1968. This was the year it finally graduated from being an optional trim package to becoming its own dedicated model. It coincided with the debut of the second-generation GM A-body platform, which featured a significantly shorter wheelbase and a more sculpted, muscular silhouette. The fenders were widened to allow for more rubber on the road, and the roofline took on a fastback-style slope that perfectly captured the aggressive aesthetic of the late 60s. Oldsmobile kept their signature quad headlight design, framing a narrow, aggressive grille that let everyone know this wasn't a standard Cutlass. Every year brought subtle refinements to the aesthetics, but by 1970, the 442 reached its final, most potent form. 1970 was the year the no replacement for displacement philosophy reached its logical conclusion. GM finally lifted its corporate ban on engines larger than 400 cubic inches in mid-sized cars, and Oldsmobile responded by stuffing a massive 455 cubic inch V8 under the hood of the W30. But this wasn't just a heavy-duty truck motor. The W30 spec 455 was an engineering masterpiece. It featured a low-restriction air cleaner, a specialized aluminum intake manifold, high-flow cylinder heads, a more aggressive camshaft, and a massive 4-barrel carburetor. On paper, Oldsmobile claimed it produced 370 horsepower, but everyone knew that was a conservative estimate for the insurance companies. In reality, these engines were pumping out closer to 400 horsepower and a staggering 500 foot-pounds of torque. It was enough to move mountains. To feed this monster, Oldsmobile developed one of the coolest induction systems of the era. The Ram Air setup used a dual snorkel air cleaner connected via massive hoses to scoops located under the front bumper. Later models featured a functional fiberglass hood with dual scoops that forced cool, dense air directly into the carburetor. And then there were the red wells. To save weight, Oldsmobile used bright red plastic inner fenders on the W30 models. Today, those red plastic liners are the ultimate tell for collectors, a badge of authenticity that separates a genuine W30 from a clever clone. Out back, an optional rear wing gave the car a balanced, aggressive stance, completing the look of a car that was built for the quarter mile. Behind that 455 V8 sat a rugged Muncie 4-speed manual controlled by a Hurst shifter that felt like it was machined from a solid block of steel. The power was sent to an aluminum rear end housing 3.91 gears, a setup that saved 18 pounds over the standard iron units and helped the 442 launch with terrifying efficiency. On the track, a well-tuned 1970 W30 could scream through the quarter mile in 13.7 seconds at over 100 miles per hour. For a car that weighed nearly 2 tons and came equipped with a full interior, those numbers were nothing short of miraculous. But the real magic of the 442 W30 wasn't just the raw speed, it was the environment in which you experienced that speed. While Dodge and Plymouth were selling stripper cars with bench seats and rubber floor mats to save weight, Oldsmobile stayed true to its upscale roots. The interior of a 442 was a place of luxury. You were surrounded by high-quality vinyl, plush carpeting, and a dashboard adorned with wood grain accents. It was the nicest intermediate interior GM offered, providing a level of comfort that made the car usable as a daily driver or a long-distance cruiser. The Oldsmobile 442 W30 targeted a refined demographic, professionals who desired a respectable daily driver that doubled as a weekend racer. Unlike the brash GTO, the W30 offered exclusive luxury, with only 3,100 units built in 1970 and fewer than 9,000 produced between 1966 and 1972. However, the golden era collapsed in 1973. New safety standards, the oil crisis, and strict emissions regulations neutered the mighty 455 V8. The 442 devolved into a mere appearance package, losing its performance soul to decals. Today, the 1968 to 1972 W30 remains a pinnacle of automotive history, proving that engineering excellence and luxury can coexist. It stands as a sophisticated alternative to raw aggression, offering a unique blend of quiet class and overwhelming power. For those who value both prestige and performance, the 442 W30's legacy remains the definitive choice of the horsepower wars.